So you and I like to talk about conspiracy theories a lot. What are some that your audience might not know that you actually believe in?
Yeah, that's like 90%, I feel like, of like the things that I am actually interested in. But people just aren't ready for like a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And first of all, you know where the term conspiracy theory even comes from, right? Do you know the origins of it?
I don't.
Okay. So it was literally created after JFK because obviously they were trying to cover up the fact that they killed JFK, and that's like all but just like widely known now. But that was the first time conspiracy theory was used, was when they were trying to disregard people saying that the government had anything to do with it. So
That's like a psyop right there, just
well,
making a
it's
word to make the truth sound wrong.
yeah. So I don't even like the phrase conspiracy theory. Like disgusts me. Like when I hear it, I actually feel like I'm hearing like a slur. It's like an offense to my like sensibilities because first of all, it's always used in the stupidest ways. 90% of the time when people use the word conspiracy theory, it's someone starting a video or starting something, not to be a conspiracy theorist, but, and it's like, what are you saying? Not to sound like people lie to me, not to sound like the government lies to me. It's like you sound stupid.
Well, the reason they're saying that is because they're like, not to sound like a Republican, but
That's
like how they do
well,
it
no,
now.
it's not even a Republican because liberals have hella conspiracy theories. They think Trump faked his shit, and
Oh yeah, they
so
do.
they believe all kinds of fake shit. But the thing about a conspiracy theory, you can see the mind control, even just the fact that people are so scared to be called that, so they have to start with saying anything even slightly out of the box, like not to be a conspiracy theory. It's like just shut up. But the amount of conspiracy theories, sorry, I'll say it like this: the amount of alternative topics that I'm interested in that are called conspiracy theories only to taint them and cast a shadow on them and make them seem far-fetched is like a lot.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't even narrow it down to one thing. Like I almost think I should just list off like buzzwords or like words for people to look into it themselves. So, oh my God, I believe in.
Here we go.
Well, I definitely believe in aliens, although I think alien is a human construct created to, first of all, that is a psyop as well. I think that there are non-human entities we share the planet with. I think that every religion, both ancient and modern, every ancient story involves these entities. And I think that there's too many people that have experiences, even in the modern times, that are not explainable or actually are quite explainable when you understand that there's some other potential beings that we share the planet with. And the only reason that sounds crazy or that has some sort of taint on it is because of a lot of psychological manipulation to make it seem that way. A lot of movies to make it seem like it's little green men from space rather than something potentially more diabolical or having any sort of spiritual connection, which I believe they do. And, you know, Christians inherently believe in non-human entities. They believe in angels and demons, and so they believe in like a lower tier of beings that are higher than us but lower than God. Demons are not higher than us,
Right.
but angels are. And you know, it's just too many people we know personally that, you know, have had experiences to disregard it. It's too many billions of dollars spent by the government on secret programs that are really easily discoverable. So
Right. Do you remember when you were telling me about the UFO release?
you
And
mean
like,
the disclosure movement in Congress, or?
well, because you were telling me that like Roswell was disproved just from one
Oh,
bunk thing, but there's like hundreds of witness
yeah,
testimonies.
yeah,
Today, the Pentagon released videotape it thought would settle the
everything and had video to back it up. People who saw these saucer-like objects, it said, were actually looking at NASA space probes tested in New Mexico in the 1960s and 70s. But the answers just triggered more questions, since the new pictures were mainly from the 50s and 60s, while the Roswell flying saucer reports occurred earlier in 1947.
Well, I'm afraid that's a problem that we have with time compression.
But even if observers were mistaken about dates, said Colonel Haynes, it was understandable that they got the wrong idea about what they saw.
They saw body bags come out because the dummies were put into body bags to protect them, and when you put all that stuff together and spin it, you find that it fits perfectly with many of the occurrences in Roswell during that era.
Would you ever open up Roswell and let us know what's really going on there?
So many people ask me that question.
I know it sounds almost ridiculous, but it's actually the real question I want to know.
It sounds like a cute question, but it's actually, there are millions and millions of people that want to go there, that want to see it. I won't talk to you about what I know about it, but it's very interesting.
And there's just so much conditioning around that topic, and a lot of it has to do with just secret technology that is human. And then a lot of it, I believe, has to do with technology that is reverse engineered from non-human entities. And that only sounds crazy if you, A, don't keep up with the disclosure movement happening in Congress.
Do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years. Biologics came with some of these recoveries.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to.
If you don't keep up with people and what they say and what they bring to light.
About these drone sightings, there have been more than 5,000.
And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows and our president knows.
And history, because you look in the Bible and you learn that the non-human entities specifically gave technology to humans. This is in the book of Enoch. It is what it is. So it's just so deep, and the word alien is a fake ass word. People are right when they're like, why did no one talk about aliens until the 1950s? Well, they just didn't use that word. That word was implanted in movies to make it seem goofy or like it's from Mars. They're very much from here.
Yeah.
And
they're very much like somewhat connected to us spiritually in certain ways.
Yeah.
And it was being operated psionically. Commonly what happens with a psionic asset who is using a form of intuition and consciousness to connect with the craft
is ultimately that they interfaced with us. What I mean by that is my consciousness could project into these craft and recovered materials and then access a suite of commands, essentially capabilities to do various things, including piloting. But ultimately, the story is not about piloting some UAP with your mind. This story is much more about what is consciousness? Yeah. Why can we interface with these things?
Which, in the movies, they make it seem like, oh, they're just angry, scary creatures from other planets super far, but they could reside here in some sort of fashion, and they communicate with us. So it's like the opposite of what they tell us.
Right. And by the way, all those secret societies we talked about too, that all of our founding fathers and presidents are part of the belief system within those secret societies is the entities as well. So you want to say entities, that makes it more palatable, aliens, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter. Also, I believe in a lot of esoteric influence on the government that is intentionally covered up. Founding fathers were all Freemasons. There's a Masonic lodge in all of your towns. There's a lot of lies about Freemasonry. I come from a family, I've never talked about this, so why not talk about it?
Oh, you're dropping that on my channel.
I come from a deeply Masonic family on my dad's side, and it's very much real. They lie and say it's just a little hometown organization and they do fundraisers for kids with cancer, and they actually do black magic.
To describe this story as horrifying would be an understatement.
And us kids would be made to do things with the adults and the animals.
On what scale do you think this was happening?
Enormous, far beyond what we've ever heard of here before.
So that's the other thing, the concept of magic. That's another thing that when you demystify it and you deprogram yourself from Hollywood movies of a witch with a cauldron and riding on a broom and casting, little spells.
They make it seem silly. It doesn't work, or it's some weird thing.
Yes, there you see it. The through line is the term conspiracy theory is meant to make something seem silly. The movies about magic make it seem silly. All of this stuff is, first of all, biblical. The entities, magic, psychics, God never said none of that stuff was real. He just said not to mess with it. So it's real. And look no further than the fact that even if you don't believe in it yourself, once you learn that the government most definitely believes in it, and that's why they all do weird shit at Bohemian Grove, once you understand that the founding fathers all believed in it and were part of secret societies like the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons, the Templars, you start to understand that that's actually the foundation of the reality we live in, that they've created because they believe in these things. So you don't have to believe in it. All the most powerful people in the world do, and they put all the efforts in the world towards stigmatizing and making it seem like it's either not real or goofy. So I do believe in magic and rituals and all that. I think war is in large part a huge ritual of child and human sacrifice.
Because there's so many pointless wars and things happening at all times where they're sending like bodies to fight a war. Right. You know, there's needless death all the time.
Right. And when you listen to victims of high-level human trafficking, like the Epsteins of the world and others, because that's one leg of it, way too many of those victims talk about how rituals and occult activities were very much a part of their victimization. So I choose to believe people, you know, not blindly, but I choose to look at like, okay, there's overarching themes here. If the government's saying Jeffrey Epstein doesn't exist, but all the victims are saying he exists and he does black magic.
Epstein shapeshifted in front of me. It's very hard to understand if you haven't seen it. But I saw it. I want to be lie detected on this.
It's kind of like, who am I supposed to believe?
And government officials are all with him and stuff, so it's not like he doesn't work in government or the government can't deny he's there when he's like literally up in it.
When you start to learn the depths of which history has been altered, not just altered, but obscured, occulted, because occult just means hidden, destroyed, lied about, like inverted, it's really scary, and I think that most people aren't even ready for that. And because
they're looking at it right now. I mean, like the JFK, like if you had even told people like 10 years after that, like, oh, the government killed your favorite president, like
realize history books say that Lee Harvey Oswald killed JFK. Like, so these are history books. You realize,
and look at 9/11 now.
History books say that 9/11 was just about like, you know, brown people in caves just flying a plane. Coming out of caves, but then flying a plane to the World Trade Center. You know, the history books, I'm sure, already talk about COVID as like not a lab leak. So you don't have to look very far to see, but then that's what makes you freak out.
I watched a news report today that came out that was in England or whatever when they were reporting on 9/11, and they had said that Building 7 fell down like 20 minutes before it did.
On the latest building collapse in New York, you might have heard a few moments ago, was talking about the Salomon Brothers building collapsing. And indeed it has. It seems that this was not a result of a new attack. It was because the building had been weakened during this morning's attacks. We'll probably find out more now about that from our correspondent, Jane Stanley. Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
Well, only really what you already know. Details are very, very sketchy. As you can see behind me, the Trade Center appears to be still burning. We see these huge clouds of smoke and ash. And
so
which is like, you could see it in the background.
Right.
So it's like, what's up?
So when you see that and you're like, okay, if they can lie about history in real time with cameras, with video, with the internet, with, you know, a mainstream media that's supposed to be finding out the lies but is paid not to actually and to cover up for them, with all of those things, imagine what they were able to get away with as far as lying when there wasn't any of those things, and when the history books were written by a small group of, by the way, wizards, like, by the way, like black magic ass people
actual
involved.
Wizards.
Even that word, you're supposed to think of it as goofy. Oh, it's Harry Potter, a wizard. Okay, well, how about the word seance? Is that a scarier word that makes you feel like it's more real? Okay. Listen, some of this is stuff that I've seen in my real life, and you know very well that I'm walking on really thin lines here as far as this is not the time or place to really talk about things I've actually witnessed or experienced myself on these various topics. But I already kind of said I came from a family involved in some secret societies, and those secret societies very much involve the occult. So maybe one day I'll be able to talk about that in a way that feels right. But you don't have to believe in all that shit yourself to understand that they believe in it. And once you understand that they believe in it, it's a whole open world of like, well, then anything's on the table. It doesn't matter if it's goofy to us to do some sort of like human sacrifice or drink adrenochrome or do spells and all that shit. It doesn't matter if you think it's goofy or you think it's fake. It matters that they think it's real. And again, that's why they're up in Bohemian Grove and all these other places doing crazy shit, because they believe it.
They believe it. I mean, look at CERN. It's like they have all that like religious stuff all over it.
Well, this is the thing about CERN. One of the things that you learn about history is how in 1902, The Rockefellers took over the education system. They took out a bunch of shit. They put in a bunch of shit. They skewed a bunch of shit. And we've been living under a complete false, dichotomy and false reality ever since then. And before in many ways, obviously, I'm sure. It's not like pre-1902 was like a bastion of, prosperity all the time. But the reason I bring that up as it relates to CERN is when you look into what exactly was changed or taken out of the education system when it comes to science and our understanding of science, is that occult practices, alchemy, magic was all very much intertwined with science back in the day. In fact, it was seen as like two legs to the person, or like, it was seen as like just another ingredient to the pie of science.
Well, literally, magic. They had ether as a periodic table element or something.
Right. And they killed Nikola Tesla because he was trying to bring that to light, that we can have free energy. And then you see weird technology in the sky that clearly operate off of free energy. And then they put down billions of dollars into psyoping you into thinking you're crazy for saying that you see it or have an experience with it. But that's going off on a tangent. CERN is a modern embodiment of what science used to be, which was a merging of magic and occult beliefs and science. Mm-hmm. So that's why they have the weird occult imagery in CERN. Feel free to put pictures on the screen. That's why they get caught doing rituals, because they're just doing science how it was done pre-1902 and how it's always been done behind closed doors since then, but you're not allowed to know about it and you're not allowed to partake in it. So
that's why it's a cult.
Yes. So is there a conspiracy theory about CERN? Yeah, absolutely. They engage in what science used to be prior to 1902, and it was taken out and it was all put into, and then everything you're allowed to know about science is this very non-metaphysical, very much like, we came from apes and there was a big bang and that's all there is to it, and just all the really, really worldly stuff. And a lot of that is true. That's the thing, though. A lot of that's not necessarily
That's how they hide it. They mix the truth with a bunch of fake stuff so that when you try to expose it, they will bring up the fake stuff and be like, well, this thing isn't real because of blah, blah, blah. It's like Pizzagate, where it's like, they'll throw a bunch of lies in so that it seems like it's all fake, but there's like a lot of truth still in there.
Yes, and that's actually on the books as a psychological manipulation tactic that the CIA uses. Is like, that's part of what they do. They plant misinformation. That's why sometimes you see people who are maybe a little far gone and their brain's a little melted from all the conspiracy shit, and they start accusing everybody of being a disinfo agent or paid opposition, and
the world's flat.
And the thing is that exists. Disinfo agents exist, and false information is definitely put out into the system by the intelligence agencies to muddy the waters. However, that's what's so diabolical about it, is like, it does really warp people's brain, because once you understand that that is a thing, suddenly everything's on the table. Anyone can be a paid liar or whatever, and then people end up going schizophrenic, and then they're in some hospital somewhere, and their biggest crime is just believing shit that is real but lied about. But anyways,
it's awful. It's like, I hate that I'm 30 and like I'm just learning the truth about a lot of things that I've experienced in my life, like 9/11, or I remember exactly where I was and everything, and to like my best friend went to Afghanistan to fight because of it, and all these different things. It's like, it's on everything that happened because of it. It's just so awful to see that like it might not be the way it's told, and it's just it sucks,
Well, then you get into MKUltra, which is government-sanctioned mind control.
In the early days of the Cold War, the CIA ordered the creation of a secret program intended to find ways of mind control. They funded an army of psychiatric institutions across the United States and Canada to perform experiments on unsuspecting patients using psychedelic drugs, sensory deprivation, electroshock treatment, and more. The program was known by its codename, MKUltra.
I've mentioned that one a few times on my channel because that one is a bit entry level, but it's one of those things that unless they had been caught doing it, for which I believe the story is someone literally found in like a dumpster outside a CIA building documents about MKUltra, and then the CIA had to admit it, and then they did hearings about it.
That's
and
crazy.
They claimed that they stopped it. Oh, they stopped it when they got caught. Okay. But that's another one that shows you how deep the rabbit hole can go, because if MKUltra was not actually declassified, people right now would see it as one of the crazier conspiracy theories. Oh, mind control. Yeah. Because again, that's another topic that
they don't put that in movies and stuff to make it seem realistic. They make it seem like it can't be done.
Yes,
but it is done all the time.
The fact that the word mind control elicits it's like goofy sounding again only because of the media that's been made it seem like it's a sci-fi thing or like a,
like a ray gun that shoots like mind control. It's like some silly stuff,
Right, but then you learn about the power of frequencies, and frequencies can be used by technology to alter people's perceptions as well, which is a lesser but also powerful form of mind control. So mind control is real, and when it comes to 9/11, to tie it back in, we're really jumping all over the place.
Yeah, this video rules.
You might as well just make this a conspiracy video. But anyways, when it comes to 9/11, you can look all this up as it relates to mind control and how it was used for 9/11. Trauma is the basis of mind control. Look up Project Monarch, look up the tactics for mind control. It involves trauma. And so not only do they have people that they will, in experiments, which has all come out, they will traumatize them in the experiments to then increase their suggestibility, so then you can implant things in their brain. And you see it on a grand scale with 9/11. What was 9/11 if not a countrywide trauma? And what did they do in our state of trauma? They put in all these laws that violated our freedoms, the Patriot Act,
And we were begging for it. We were like, we need security. We want security.
But it's because we were susceptible, and because we were highly suggestible, because we were in a state of trauma. And you can look at COVID that way. You can look at a lot of stuff that way.
And it's like, now we're getting patted down every time I want to go to another state. And like they let people in the country without even checking. It's like crazy.
Right. So it's a actually fairly simple step-by-step process for mind control. Is like you traumatize someone, their suggestibility goes up, and then you use repetition. So, safe and effective, safe and effective, safe and effective with the vaccine. Or
which is crazy because now we're all over the place with conspiracies, but this isn't even a conspiracy. It wasn't safe and it wasn't effective. And they repeated that over and over and over. It's crazy.
Or with 9/11, it's like, we got to get the terrorists. We got to get the terrorists. We got to get the terrorists. Muslims are the bad guys and Muslims are the bad guys. It's a lot of repetition, but while you're in a state of trauma. And so that's
Bin Laden worked for the CIA in the 80s, or his father did. So it's like, then you start looking at that, that's a little peculiar. Or his family was the only flights out that day in the United States. It's like, how did they coordinate that? That's a little weird. I don't know, man. There's
a lot of in the weed stuff with it, and we still don't know everything about 9/11. But isn't it so sad that we're coming up on over 20 years since it happened, and there's finally some conversations starting to happen about you know what? Maybe that wasn't the way it happened. Maybe there was some stuff we should look into. So it shows you the length of time it takes for people. I mean, we're still, despite it being common knowledge at this point that our own government killed JFK, we're still trying to work out of the trauma of it happening countrywide, and also the manipulation that occurred, which was the birth of the term conspiracy theory.
Right.
It all goes back to that. That was their big one. The 60s was a big time for this stuff.
And to make a term up after an event like that, it almost places blame on the event being fraudulent. It's like, oh, we gotta come up with a word now that we've killed the president. It almost seems premeditated.
Right.
And in time for the moon landing, time wise too.
Well, it's just a mind control tactic. It's to create this phrase, conspiracy theorist. And by the way, if you want to look at magic as something a little more tangible and real, that's a good example, because one of the tenets that is involved in magic is the idea that words are spells. And we can see how words have so much power. Words can manipulate, they can move masses, they can enlighten, they can, harm. And so if you look at spells as repetition of words or powerful words, that there's energy when you speak them, which to be in denial of that there's energy in words, it's just I feel like you're not really in tune with
that goes to the frequency thing that you were talking about too.
Let's not jump yet. So magic can sound crazy until you understand that words really do have a lot of energetic power, and they can manipulate people. They can cause people to believe in false flags. They can cause people emotions and shame. So magic is a lot more tangible when you understand it like that. And when you see maybe magic being performed on television, which is just repetition of words and using specific words. And
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Magick has this weird, like, hokey or like, you know, Hollywood spin on it, but it's like, it's really just like using words to manipulate reality. It's like if you're telling a bunch of people over and over again in their traumatized state that we got to go get the Muslim terrorists, and then everybody goes along with it because they're being influenced by this spell, you can look at it, right? And then all of a sudden we're in this huge war. That's reality manipulation. There's now a war happening that wouldn't have been happening otherwise. So that's a way you can actually look at magic where it's tangible and brings it down to like a, how can anyone say that's fake kind of level.
Right. And it's all like a fear manipulation thing too. I mean, that's the easiest way to manipulate people's fear. It's
right.
like, oh, scary terrorists, we got to go get them. It's for your safety, you know?
Right.
Have you heard that before? For your safety? I mean,
Right.
that's like pretty much the legitimizing thing for any, you know, nefarious plan that they have
Right.
for us. It's for your safety because we
Right.
compromise our freedom for safety a lot,
But
which
what do
is
they have
really
to?
not good.
But what do they have to create before the fear is some sort of trauma.
Right.
So that's why there's going to be some huge event, or for, you know, unfortunately, people who were victims of MKUltra or experimentation, they will traumatize them physically. Sometimes they use tools like sensory deprivation,
Electroshock.
Right. And then you're like, okay, mind control sounds crazy until you look at gay conversion camps back in the day. They were using mind control. They were using electroshock when they would put a picture of a man on the screen for a gay man trying to convert to straight. That's mind control. So we see these words as like silly or goofy or science fiction or just out there because we've been conditioned to see them that way. But when you bring it down to real stuff, all of it makes sense. What's like another conspiracy theory that
Let's see. We have
I hate that
aliens.
I even use the phrase. But
we should just talk about occult knowledge at this
we've
point.
done aliens, the occult lightly. We've done CERN.
We got aliens, magic.
Oh wait,
CERN.
I wanted to make a point about though.
Hey guys, I got something pretty awesome to share with you. Hovsco just sent me their brand new Hovcart Cargo e-bike. First off, it's equipped with a powerful torque sensor, giving you a natural, smooth, and super responsive ride. Check out this footage. No awkward jumps, just effortless pedaling every time. This beast easily handles up to 450 pounds, so whether you're taking the kids out with the optional children's double seat, dragging along a tripod like me everywhere, or loading up your friend or girlfriend on the back, either way, you're totally set. It's powered by a premium 48-volt, 15-amp removable Samsung LG battery, giving you 40 to 60 miles of riding range. Paired with a strong 750-watt sustained motor that peaks at 1300 watts, errands and outdoor fun are a breeze. It's got this awesome LED screen right here that shows you how much battery it's got and everything. If you notice any flashing, don't worry, that's the frame rate. I'm looking at it right now, it looks awesome. Plus, Hovsco provides free shipping from their US warehouse, a 2-year warranty, and they've partnered with over 100 locations nationwide for test rides and maintenance. So be sure to go check out the Hovsco Hovcart Cargo e-bike by clicking the link pinned in the description. It really helps me out. I appreciate you guys so much. So click the link and go get your ride. Use code JGS for a $100 discount on your Hovsco bike. Thank you, Hovsco, for sponsoring today's video. And now back to the video.
Conspiracy theories are also very much utilized by intelligence agencies because you'll notice there are certain conspiracy theories that you're safe to say out loud. Mm-hmm. You're safe to debate publicly, and there's no whatever. Flat Earth is a really good example of that.
Yeah.
I personally believe that someday it'll come out that the intelligence agencies actually helps to propagate and spread the flat earth thing, because I think it's an amazing cover for all the nefarious shit they do in space and all the lies they do about space, say about space.
Right.
Because if you convince a certain sect of people that space is fake, and those people happen to be the same people who would believe in conspiracy theories about other shit you do in space, you don't have to worry about them catching on to what you're doing in space anymore.
Right.
Or technology we have that can traverse space they don't want you to know about, or war that could take place in space that they don't want you to, other countries to be privy to. So flat earth is a very convenient conspiracy theory for the intelligence agencies, actually, and that's why you'll see it on mainstream television in a goofy way. Like
Jersey Shore did it.
Jersey Shore did a whole episode about flat Earth, I remember. And it's like, okay, well, why can't Jersey Shore do a whole episode about how...
And if MTV can do it, show the MTV headquarters. What was that building?
Oh, yeah. MTV is also Masonically controlled. That's... You can put the picture up, look in the history. It is what it is. But flat Earth is a very convenient one because it makes people think that space isn't fake, and space is very much real. Mm-hmm. It's just about what goes on in space, maybe what we found in space that they don't want you to know about, which is why it's not that NASA doesn't send probes or satellites to other planetary bodies or space or around the globe, but the way you know that they lie about that is they curate a lot of the images, they redact a lot of the images that look shady, they will composite the images. So we send real shit to space and get fake images back, not because space is fake, but because they're covering up shit that's in space, right? And then you want to look at the transcripts for like the moon landing. Why was Neil Armstrong talking about encountering beings on the moon? Why
did the moon ring like a bell when they landed on it?
Right. Why did Edgar Mitchell one of the astronauts, go to his grave saying that the government knows about non-human intelligence, aka aliens, and has billions of dollars spent to cover it up? Why?
I mean, just the lighting, all the lighting proof alone. We use lights all the time for everything we shoot. It's like sunlight and studio lights. They don't intersect like they did on the moon anyway. And
well, that's a different topic. You're talking about if we went to the moon or not. I'm talking about why do the astronauts seem to believe in aliens and because of their experience. But the moon landing itself, that is a good one because that's like an entry level.
I feel like we went... Yeah, here, now I'm going to sound like the crazy one here, but it's like...
Nothing... the thing is...
Nothing you said is crazy.
You just did what they want you to do.
You're right, I did.
They want you to preface a statement you're saying with, I'm crazy. And for me, I don't believe in anything I don't come to through research, my own experience, which I then research, or just knowledge that's hidden. It's not hard to look at what knowledge is safeguarded and hidden. You know what I mean? And those are always the things you have to ask, okay, why is something hidden? When it comes to the moon landing, I don't know exactly what to think about it, and I've gone back and forth. I think where I'm at now is we did go to the moon, but I think that a lot of the footage we got back was stuff that was shot in a safe environment, probably on Earth, and that's why it looks so shitty.
Yeah.
And that's probably because of what we discovered on the moon.
And what we really found on the moon.
Or what happened on the moon.
Yeah.
And then that's when you start to get into the real truth, because then you can look at the astronaut transcripts and what they say happened on the moon. And it's like, why are they talking about being confronted by craft? Why are they talking about encountering entities? Why does Edgar Mitchell go to his grave saying that the world needs to wake up about aliens? So
why are there multiple different psychic viewers that say that there's a base on the moon right now that have been tested by our government?
Okay.
There is an issue of why the Soviet Union and the United States did not go back to the moon in the 70s when they spent all this money getting there to colonize it.
They sort of abruptly stopped, and that has been one issue that has not been questioned by the general public very much. And
if you don't know much about the moon and you don't know much about ETs and things like that, then none of this makes any sense. But if you know more and more and more about it, then a whole bigger picture begins to unfold.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back.
Now we have to talk about psychic shit.
Right. Sorry, I went there.
And that's fine, because the government certainly went there when they spent hundreds of millions of dollars on psychic research.
Right.
That we have no idea if they ever stopped it or not. So we have remote viewers is what it's called, which is the CIA. If you look at Project Stargate, Project Sunstreak, and so many others, but the government has utilized psychics forever.
Yeah.
And not just our government, the KGB, the Chinese intelligence agencies, the major countries of the world have all utilized, studied, and created formulas for psychics to work effectively. We've used psychics to discover submarine bases outside of Russia.
Mm-hmm. How did you get selected for the remote viewing program?
In January 1986, I got approached by the people at Fort Meade to they sent someone down to interview me for the job, and it took 6 months to get from Army Intelligence to the Defense Intelligence Agency to work as a remote viewer.
And we've literally had, you can look it up, there was just one of the remote viewers just sitting in a room in the US given coordinates, and he's like, oh yeah, there's a submarine down there, it has 7 floors, and they're probably gonna use it for war. We went over there, we found it.
Yeah.
So that is impossible.
Impossible.
But think what else is pretty stigmatized is in terms of like mainstream culture, film, media, is psychic shit.
Yeah, psychic.
They make it some Miss Cleo shit.
If you want him to believe that it's over, then you gotta stop accepting the booty calls at 2 a.m. in the morning. You understand?
Yeah.
Right. It's just goofy every time where it's like, it's all those like Long Island mediums and just they're just silly characters.
Who lost the spouse? I think I'm right here. Your wife has departed? Is that her wedding ring?
No, it's my mother's.
Do you still have her chair?
No.
Or did she have an issue with her legs prior to her passing?
No.
There is absolutely a mechanism to make psychic shit look goofy, and I don't think it's what people probably think it is, but there is science behind it. You look up parapsychology, that's the scientific research of psychic phenomena and of telepathy.
And there's survivors of this with full testimonials. Like we just listened to Kathy O'Brien's documentary. It's like that's like a whole.
Well, there's survivors of it, and then there's people who aren't survivors. They were just on a payroll of the government as a remote viewer, as a psychic spy, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we brought home hostages. We found submarines. We've, like you said, remote viewed the moon and Mars." And those, I don't really know, if there's any truth to what remote viewers have said about how there's, ancient civilizations on Mars, but I know that multiple of them have said that were on CIA payroll, and multiple of them described the same things in separate settings that they weren't allowed to communicate. So
he gave a sealed envelope. Inside had a card that said Mars 1 million years BC. So Bob had this card in his shirt pocket, and we had a list of coordinates as targets. I didn't know anything about the targets as I was laying in a dark black cube, and this was my response. I got a great view of a pyramid form, sitting in a large depression. It's yellowish, ochre colored. I get clouds, a severe storm, major geological trauma. Then I was asked to visit the site before the trauma. They said, go back before the trauma. They said all the dirt had disappeared. There were now smooth walls. Everything was flat, megalithic. Shadow of people, fragments, memory of people. They said, go back to when they were there. Large people, thin and tall, wearing strange clothes, skin tight, very tight, almost can't see them. This is the actual target based on the coordinates. That's the face everybody's always referring to on Mars. This is actually the depressed area. This is the pyramid.
I don't know the full extent of any of this. I just know that the idea that it's all fake is retarded. And if it is fake, then we should be knocking down, we should be knocking on the door of Congress and the White House and everything, that like all of our billions of tax dollars have went to psychics, to aliens, to paranormal shit.
To faking tragedies that traumatize the entire country.
Right, so that they can...
And kill people in the process. Like, people die during all of these. Yeah.
The least of what they care about is killing people. But, yeah, so did we go to the moon? I think probably. But I think that what happened on the moon and what we discovered on the moon is redacted.
Stays on the moon.
Right, and that's why the footage looks fake, but yet you still have...
They're like, yo, Kubrick, come here. We can't show what we actually found.
Right.
Come direct this.
Well, they killed Stanley Kubrick, who is a famous director. He did Eyes Wide Shut. He did
Space Odyssey. Right before the moon landing. He was working on set with like the NASA people or whatever, and he just filmed Space Odyssey. And I swear, if you watch Space Odyssey right now, it holds up. Like, it looks like space still. So.
Well, also he died a week after Eyes Wide Shut first started screening. And they they took stuff out of Eyes Wide Shut in his death, and there's certain things that were in that original screening, which if you don't know, the movie is about secret societies, the occults, the Illuminati, which is another word you're supposed to feel like is goofy until you realize there's a real historic basis for Illuminati. That's another thing. But Stanley Kubrick, died a week after the movie started screening, and they took shit out. Specifically, they took shit out of the ritual scenes,
Mm-hmm.
which is very interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. So in my opinion, I go and look at where information is being pulled from Access. I go and look at where tons of resources are being spent. I go and look at where things are mocked and ridiculed, because time and time again, when something is mocked and ridiculed, it's like, that can't be real. When there's like an emotional response we all have, we're being conditioned to have, like, oh, you're crazy if you think aliens are real. Okay, then what the, why are there stories in the Bible about craft in the sky? Why are there stories in all of our ancient histories? Why are all of our ancestors so fucking crazy and silly and liars and make up myths and fairy tales, but our leaders now are telling the truth to us, even though we see time and time again they're not? So I also just have respect for our ancestors, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, and I mean, and look at the leaders now. I mean, they're all still part of all these secret societies and things, like all the way back to George Washington.
Joe Biden got a Joe Biden got a Freemason reward like 6 months ago. He's still in that now.
Right.
So
George Washington wrote letters about the Illuminati in some of his documents too, like about the Freemasons versus the Illuminati. George Washington did. So it's like it goes back.
Well, hold on. George Washington was a Freemason, and guess what year the Illuminati was established?
1776.
Yep.
Oh, wow. I just got, of course.
Look it up.
Wow.
Ask your little chat GPTs. 1776 was the year the Illuminati formed and America formed. So, is it all fake, or is it stuff you're just not supposed to know about?
How about Abraham Lincoln writing about giants and the fact that he was really tall and all the giant bones that they found in the United States? So what about your thoughts on giants and dinosaurs, Blaire? Because that's a good one.
Well, you're lumping in giants and dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two separate topics. I'll start with giants. The idea that giants are some sort of myth or fairy tale, I think, is probably one of the biggest jokes out of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can look at every other species of animal and talk about how they used to be so much massively bigger when conditions on Earth were different. So we're like, do you know how big a turtle used to be? It used to be the size of a
car.
A car. You know how big, birds used to be huge, dinosaurs apparently. So it's like, okay, so we can acknowledge that every other form of animal used to be massively bigger but us.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay.
Yeah, we came from like a monkey and,
right.
Got bigger.
And then you start to look at we're the only one that seems to get bigger over time. But then you look at lost history.
All the magazines.
You look at, first of all of the religions talk about giants.
Mm-hmm.
David and Goliath. Needless to say that. If you're religious at all, or even know about the Bible, the Quran, et cetera, et cetera.
And then, ancient stories that aren't even religious, just ancient texts and stuff.
For
like
all
the Odyssey and stuff. I mean, that's a little out there.
Well, here's where we can unite people on giants. For all the, religious conservatives who are like, what about giants? Your Bible talks about it. And then for all of the libs who want to, talk about how this land was stolen land from the Native Americans, okay, let's talk about how all the Native Americans talk about how prior to them there were giants living here. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how there are countless news articles from the early 1900s and mid-1900s about giant bones being found,
mm-hmm.
and then the Smithsonian coming in and taking them. Let's talk about the quote from Abraham Lincoln, how he said that, I'm going to butcher it, so put it on the screen, how the eyes of giants once looked over this land as we do, and he specifically was talking about a mound, and they found giant bones in a mound and then scrubbed it.
Stop.
Yes.
Are you talking about a specific mound that they found giant bones in?
St. Louis.
Whoa, okay.
So,
see, I didn't even know that. That's nutty.
For me, not to mention there's just all these pictures from back in the day of people who were extremely tall. And the only reason that seems crazy also is like we see that there are people who are really small. We see people who are like this big. Put another picture, I don't know. Human variation stops at, they can just be really, really tiny. And every other animal can used to be really, really big. But we always were this size. Like, just get out of here. Like,
right.
The thing is, like, there's certain through lines. And I feel like if it appears in text, history, texts and religious texts from every corner of the earth forever, prior to 1902, then there's some weight to it. Not everything.
Yeah.
Not everything. But I just don't think it's that crazy to believe that people used to be taller. We can see it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, it's this is where I really want to go with this conversation.
Okay.
You can see it in the architecture.
Oh yeah, you can see. Obviously, you can take it to just the pyramids. would make a lot more sense that we can't figure out how they moved all these things if they were just a little bit bigger. And it doesn't have
not just the pyramids, but I mean the countless megalithic structures across the world that are unexplained.
That are in North America, that are in South America, they're in Asia, everywhere. They're everywhere. And we're up here like, how did they do all this? Well, you know what? If people were a little bit bigger back in the day, it would make a lot more sense. And I'm not even talking like needed to be massively bigger. Think of how much of a difference it would make in the ease of building the pyramids if humans were only even like 3 to 4 feet taller.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like they were saying that they found tombs in Egypt, or like caskets that were like 10 feet tall, 10, 12 feet tall.
I'm sure they found them. They find them in America, dude. Go look up news articles from the 1900s about giant bones being found. It's everywhere, all across North America. We had a president who talked about them, just invoked their, name, their group name, as if it's like he's talking about black people or white people or gay people. He's like, oh yeah, the giants used to be here. It's like, what?
Right.
And then I haven't actually thought about this. Think about how tall Abraham Lincoln was. Wasn't he like freakishly tall?
He's huge.
Maybe he was like talking about his ancestors. I don't know.
Of course. The freakishly tall president is the one that just brings up giants.
Right.
I mean, it's his people,
Maybe. But the thing is, it's a lot of shit that is fake about our reality. And I feel like people, that are more like conspiracy theory averse, like they're just so scared to be called that or think that way or whatever. Just so you know, that is somewhat of a trauma response. That is you being scared of the reality of some of these things being true, and scared of the reality that the system lies to you and that the establishment lies to you. Because
your basis of truth is just what other people tell you all the time. So you should always use critical thinking when it comes to anything. It's like, just believe. You can't even believe what you see now too, which is like crazy.
Right.
So you have to really use critical thinking all the time. But like historical documents and things that like we're talking about, it's like certain things can't really be disproved.
And if
which gives a lot of evidence to these crazy things we're talking about.
It's such an interesting dance you have to play though, because you can get caught up in, you see it all the time with people who get caught up in believing everything because they're so burned by the fact that we've been lied about so much. I think it's somewhere in the middle. Like, if you're going all the way to space isn't fake, we got to pull you back. You're missing a big point, and you're conveniently letting, people who potentially have committed crimes in space and things they've, faked about space or lied about space to you, you're letting them off the hook with that one belief. You're like, oh, I don't have to worry now about why the astronauts said weird shit about aliens on the moon because the space is fake. It's like, it's just, it's intellectually lazy. So
they want to throw you off course really hard.
As long as you're not being intellectually lazy, you're following data, you're following, like I said, through lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can start to see that it's more nonsensical to believe that some of this shit is fake than it is the other way around.
Right.
And it's a really, it's a lifelong process of unlearning lies, learning about shit that's been omitted and taken out of our history and of our science and all of that. But the easiest way to get there is just to start with understanding that you're being lied to about so many things. And both liberals and conservatives, not that this is really even a political thing, but just as an example, liberals and conservatives, they have a few things on their respective sides that they're very comfortable admitting the government's lying to you about. So like the right, the more like mainstream establishment right, like they're like very comfortable saying a few things. Like they're comfortable saying that COVID had some lies attached to it. They're comfortable saying that, Hunter's lied and all these things, right? The leftists are comfortable saying, and I think they're wrong, that Trump faked his shit. But that's even a convenient one to believe in, because then you don't understand that, like, that kid was clearly MKUltra to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a long history.
So you're missing a lot of truths by believing.
Right. But what are some other things? Leftists are very comfortable saying, like, Christopher Columbus is a psyop, and I agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, this country has been here a lot longer than people think. You know?
But then you have to understand, like, it goes so much farther than just what's in your little bubble, what you're comfortable saying is a lie or a conspiracy. And there's really a war for your mind. There's a war to keep you within those bubbles. Mind you, We were not allowed to say Jeffrey Epstein was a thing until it came out. We weren't allowed to say MKUltra was a thing. No one even thought of it, first of all. It wasn't even not, you weren't allowed to. It's like no one knew about it. But until someone found in the dumpster of the CIA documentation about, wait, the government's been mind controlling people. And then if you
like putting our money, our taxpayer dollars into it, like I'm talking a lot. I'm sure. I mean,
but that becomes a lot more realistic when you understand that we were involved in the Cold War at the time. And if Russia's doing psychic research and mind control research, for damn sure, you know, the U.S. is going to do it, because then they can justify it by it's a matter of like, we have to have what they have. We have to have better than what they have. Then that's a really good one, because you get into the non.
Yeah, I was just about to say, because Operation Paperclip, which isn't even a conspiracy, it's
right. You see how
it's a real thing that happened.
You see how much
you should tell them what it is.
Yeah. So Operation Paperclip. This is again a little more of a surface one, but if you don't know, it's how after World War II we actually took a ton of, and when I say a ton, I mean like they filled the CIA, the FBI, NASA, everything. We took all the Nazis from Germany. It was like our little reward. You know, the Allies won, so we're gonna kill who we want to kill, use who we want to use,
and capture all the technology and scientists and everything. We use it to our own gain.
Yes, and that's what we did. And we took all the scientists and we just erased their war crimes. And that's why Wernher von Braun, you know, head of NASA, like he was a scientist.
But it's fucked up where they put some of these people. Some of them went straight to Disney, in NASA, like right in the places where they're doing a lot of. Like media towards our population, where it's like, you know, NASA obviously with the moon like landing and everything, and then Disney obviously with everything Disney does. It's like they're putting them in places where they're not like in the shadows. They're kind of like telling our populace like what to think.
To introduce you to this new series is Walt Disney. In our modern world, everywhere we look, we see the influence science has upon our daily lives. Many of the things that seem impossible now will become realities tomorrow.
Yes, and what's really fascinating is when you look into the occult history of Nazi Germany, and you understand how much resources, how much time, resources, energy was being spent by the Nazis and Hitler and Germany at a time of war, World War II. Mm-hmm. How much of that was being allocated towards occult research and psychic research and, you know, aliens.
All that UFO stuff is real.
100%,
which is crazy, because like you play video games like Wolfenstein and stuff, and at the very end you like fight Hitler, and then maybe there's some aliens there because like, oh, they had alien technology too, blah blah blah. Like, that's how video games do it to you too. That was a great game, by the way. But it doesn't matter because it's real. Like, there's documents about it. They took the scientists over. It's all like, it is what it is.
Yeah. And MKUltra mind control tactics were taken from the so part of the larger psyop of like, you know, history books and mainstream television, it's like, it's really hammered into your head that there's like nothing worse than the Nazis, nothing worse than Hitler's the ultimate bad guy. If there's a politician we don't like, then he's the next Hitler or whatever. We see it over and over again. And the Nazis were objectively evil. They committed war crimes. They were doing heinous research. All the heinous research we're talking about that America did, we got it from them. So there's no defense of the Nazis. However, it's part of the psyop that like they're so demonized and it's so put into your head through repetition, because they don't want you to ever suspect that we are and were doing what they were doing. Right. So they create this separation of like the Allies versus them. We were all doing the same shit. So,
yeah, it's like, good thing America won. We beat those Nazis. And then it's like, turn around, take them here, and then have them experiment on
NASA
people.
And experiment on us and do all this shit. So that's what I mean when you start to really peel back the onion layer and understand, like, they keep everyone emotionally and intellectually compartmentalized into like these little battles with each other and even country to country war. And the reality of it, there's a small group at the top. Just like the story, it always comes back to just a small group at the top that 100% believe in black magic, that 100% believe in occult rituals. Go look at the Rothschild parties. Go look at all the things that it's just out there, right?
I mean, they do like stock bids and things on like certain holidays. Like if you look up, like, you know, they're on like old calendars and things. Like, I'm not exactly sure what types, but like I know that there's a lot of things that the upper top people. I sound so dumb, but it's like, I know there's a lot of people at the top that use these ancient calendars as guidebooks to when they, spend their money and when they, buy and sell, like a lot of like top level stuff.
They all use astrology. They all use spell work. They all summon entities to do their shit. The shit they do at Bohemian Grove, which is George Bush, which is Bill Clinton, which is Al Gore, which is all of your guys, right? Americans. What were they doing? They were doing mock sacrifices to Moloch, which is a fucking demon from the Bible. So it's like, you don't have to believe in it. You believe that they believe in it. And when you understand that, you're like, holy shit. Of course, the world's ran by satanic pedophiles. That's the end of the statement. That's who runs the world. And it's not to be, though, pessimistic or black-pilled, because at the end of the day, people are waking up to a lot of this shit.
Yeah.
Like, I know if I know all this shit, I know people know this shit. So that's a silver lining, and that's also part of like my personal spiritual awakening and my relationship with God. Is it's really helped me not be black-pilled, to be honest, because first of all, then you get into the Bible.
Let's talk about the Bible.
I'm not going to get too heavy in the Bible because that's a little sensitive with people, and not only am I a bit new to Christianity, I'm also a fucking and like, let me just not even trigger you guys. But I have done a lot of work as it relates to studying and understanding the Bible since becoming a Christian, and even before that, because I had to decide I wanted to be a Christian, which meant reading the text and understanding the layers. And then you start to look at like, okay, when you start understanding mainstream Bible, right? Mainstream understanding of the Bible, you start to understand how that's actually a bit surface level too. How there's shit that's been taken out of the Bible. There's books removed from the Bible. There's books placed into the Bible that maybe shouldn't be. So then you understand, okay, what is the knowledge specifically that was taken out of the Bible? A lot of it has to do with self-empowerment. A lot of it has to do with...
Like a lot of Jesus's words were taken out of the canonical Bibles that are like readily available.
And we're talking about the Gospel of Mary. We're not talking about some random fringe book that someone wrote thousands of years later. We're talking about like real books of the Bible that
are... From people that know him. So it's like being new to Christianity too. Sorry to like just jump in here. It's like, it's kind of messed up to be like, well, I want to know everything Jesus said. And then it's like, okay, well, there's books that... of his friends and disciples that they've taken out, and it's like, well, why can't I hear from them? They're like his closest people. And then you look into kind of the things that are in there, and it's like, oh, okay, I can see why they would take that out.
Yes, almost all the things that have been taken out of the Bible just coincidentally have to do with how you're supposed to question power structures, how you're supposed to question the institutions, including the church, how the church is actually not part of what your belief in Jesus and God should be. And
Jesus literally said, don't worship me.
And no one talks about that.
And nobody talks about that. Right. And people worship Jesus like he's awesome, but it's like he says not to even worship him. But like, where's the money in that, right?
Right. And sorry, what was I going to say? So I'm no expert in all of this. I just know that there's a lot of stuff taken out of the Bible that I feel like really shouldn't have been. And just coincidentally, all of it has to do with self-empowerment. All of it that they've taken out coincidentally provides a lot of cover for institutions that we know are corrupt and have been. So it's just an interesting world, and it's just understanding that, like, when it comes to the people at the top, when you are so rich, when money is not an issue, when money is not of any concern, the things that start becoming the things that you hoard is information and knowledge. So, and interestingly, how also taken out of the Bible is all the statements from Jesus and the apostles talking about how God actually wants you to come to him specifically for knowledge. There's a really big emphasis on that in the banned books of the Bible, of like, God wants you to be curious and come to him and say, like, help me figure out this reality I'm living in. Specifically, Jesus talks about how we live in a false reality constructed by these institutions, and that the way out of it is seeking God for knowledge specifically. Now, why would these institutions take out that you're supposed to not trust them and go to God to break out of the trap that they set for you? So there is some stuff taken out of the Bible that I'm sure is 100% worthy to be removed. But some of the stuff is just very when you read it and you really have a connection with God and a connection with Jesus, you start to see like, wow, I can tell this is what Jesus said. And when you start to understand they're taking out quotes from Jesus, and you know because of your own relationship with God that this is a real quote, you're kind of like, oh, it's dark. It's dark.
It's just there's a lot of like lies and psyops around the Bible itself, and
aliens are in the Bible. Book of Enoch explains all the entities and everything. And so the only reason we see a lot of these concepts as crazy is because they've taken away the knowledge of, and it would otherwise just be part of your natural paradigm, just as much as dogs or cats are. It's like, oh yeah, the entities. So it's a crazy world, but I think we should. I think we've covered almost everything.
Yeah,
aliens, Jesus, giants, CERN, space, the moon.
What about ghosts?
I don't know how I feel about ghosts.
I'm not really sold on ghosts either.
Well,
maybe like glitches in like dimensions or something. Yeah. I don't know. That could be possible.
I think that's possible. I think that I first of all haven't looked a lot into ghosts, but the concept of ghosts, I just ripped a nail off. But the concept of a ghost isn't actually as far-fetched as a lot of this shit, considering, we believe, if you believe in an afterlife, you believe that they go somewhere, and there's such a thing as purgatory. There's such a thing as life after death. If you're a believer, then that's what you believe in. And if anything, ghosts are probably the things people have had the most experiences with. So if you want to just trust your fellow man, the ghosts are a thing. I mean, sure. I don't know. I've never had an experience with like a ghost, like a apparition visually showing up, but I do feel like I've had communications with loved ones from beyond. I feel like my dad has spoken to me. I feel like I've been in communication with your grandmother, and that's not words per se. I'm not hearing voices, right? It's just,
it's kind of like a feeling.
It's an energy.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's an energy, and then you can learn, just the science of energy and how it always, alchemizes into something else or breaks down into something else, and you get the phrase energy never dies. And if that's the case, ghosts become a lot more believable. But I don't know how much I believe that ghosts really can manifest and show up physically and scare you like that. That's all, I think, media.
Yeah.
But I do believe you can talk to your loved ones from beyond the grave, and I feel like if you're in tune and you are spiritual, that you can actually receive communication back in the form of downloads and emotion and love and energy. I really do believe that.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what a ghost is. But
I figured I'd ask, Yeah, I figured I'd ask to cover it.
I'm done. That's every topic.
All right, so I think we pretty much covered everything that you're not supposed to cover on any channel ever, anywhere. But that was a lot of fun. Leave in the comments any other conspiracies we should look up, because we'll definitely be looking at it. Please subscribe to this channel. It really supports me in this journey of supporting Blaire and myself independently, financially, from not working for big companies that don't like me because of my conservative beliefs. And anything else?
No.
No? Okay, great. All right. Thanks for watching.
Bye, guys.